2025. Today, we're going to be looking at the forecast on the global economy and its trends, uncertainty, and the Global Trade-Finance Nexus. So we will welcome our speakers shortly. And then just to remind you, next month, we're going to be looking at the LDC group and where it's heading in the future. And that short course will be the last for this semester, and it will be held on the 11th of December of 2025. So as you know, for the short courses, they are part of our mandate, and they are dedicated for you to provide the opportunity for exchanging, for questioning, for having this dialogue with UNCTAD on the latest economic trends, trade policy, and all areas in the mandate that UNCTAD covers. And as you know, in response to, let's say, the fiscal crisis, to the financial crisis that is facing the United Nations and the Secretariat as a whole, and UNCTAD, of course, we have decided to increase these short courses as an opportunity for you to have this exchange. So you'll notice that this semester we had additional short courses in comparison to previous semesters and years. So we will continue doing this, and we'll continue, of course, looking at ways in which we can respond to best address also your needs when it comes to our mandate. Some of you might know this already, but as mentioned earlier and during the last course, there will be a report by the advisory body meeting. There was an advisory body meeting held on the 17th of September for the paragraph 166. And the meeting was chaired by the Ambassador of Panama on behalf of the President of the TDB. During this meeting, the University of Nairobi Faculty of Economics was established as the multi-venue hosting venue for future Africa regional courses for that region. And we will be, of course, coordinating and collaborating with the university, and we will see how best we can deliver the regional course, whether we need to do a hybrid, for example, mode of operation, or in person, and so on. We will see. All this will be determined in due time. And also the board explored various measures and so on how we can actually mitigate the financial crisis. So just to let you know, at the end of this month, during the advisory, during the trade and development report, the trade and development meeting, there will be an item dedicated to paragraph 166, in which all these matters will be addressed by the president of the TDB. Okay, so let's turn to our short course today. And we're going to start with the opening remarks by Anastasia. And before that, we will introduce you, if you don't mind, to our delegates. So we're very happy to have Anastasia Nesvetolovia, who is the director of the Macroeconomic and Development branch of UN Trade and Development UNCTAD in Geneva. There, she leads the team responsible for the flagship Trade and Development Report, which will be covered today during this short course. And prior to this position, Anastasia was a professor of international political economy at City University of London. And as well, Anastasia's main research has focused on the political economy of finance. She has published widely on issues of financial instability, financial innovation, and regulation, including 3 monographs: Fragile Finance, Debt Speculation and Crisis in the Age of Global Credit, 2007, Financial Alchemy in Crisis, The End of Liquidity Illusion, 2010, and Sabotage, the Business of Finance, 2020, with R. Pelan, as well as numerous academic and policy articles on the global financial system, crises, and financial governance. Welcome, Anastasia, and over to you for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Randa. Thank you very much, delegates. Good morning. I will have to be brief, unfortunately, this time, because I'm called into another meeting that started 15 minutes ago, but I will come back after my colleagues present their substantive contributions and their substantive parts on the global economy. Just to introduce who we are and what we do, on the slide at my background, you see some of the images of the Trade and Development Report. This is the main product not only of our branch, but also of the whole institution here in UNCTAD. It's the flagship publication on the global economy and its implications for developing countries' growth and integration prospects. The Trade and Development Report comes out every autumn annually. It's a major production, and this year we are dedicating it to one of the core concern of the year, that is the policy shocks that are reverberating through the global economy. Of course, they are centered on the trading system, but they're not confined to trade system. What you see on the slide is a few images from the TDR, as it's affectionately called, from the couple of years before. And I also brought you some of the printouts of the overview from last year. You will see it. You see the red image when, to commemorate the anniversary of UNCTAD last year, we launched it as a rethinking development paradigm on the edge of the new industrial revolution. So a snapshot of that report now is on the front desk in the room. But also we brought a flyer, a little sneak preview of what's coming out in a few weeks' time. It will be launched officially. Something that we called On the Brink, with a subtitle of Trade, Finance and the Reshaping of the Global Economy. Why the subtitle and the nexus between trade and finance? Because, of course, trade is our major focus in UNCTAD. But trade doesn't happen in a vacuum, and trade is not possible without the financial infrastructure, without the banking system, without the operations of credit, without capital markets working, and without trade finance, primarily, of course, supporting that. Similarly, trade or trade shocks often originate in non-economic disturbances, and financial context transmits monetary policy shocks, non-economic shocks, sometimes climate disturbances through financial volatility and turbulence in financial markets. So we took it upon ourselves this year to investigate the dimensions of global merchandise trade, global commodities trade, but also broadly the integration strategies of developing countries in the context of, if you want, financialized trade. It's a little bit of an artificial term because trade has always been a financial operation. So if you look at in dictionaries, what is trade finance? What is an actual transaction when you trade, or when you go to the cafe here and buy your cup of coffee? It's a relatively simple trade operation. You exchange your money for a good or service, but without the financial receipt and without the banking infrastructure supporting that, and of course without the political authority authorizing that transaction, none of these simple operations will be possible. So it's very important to understand the nexus between trade and finance and how it's being, if it is in fact being reshaped by this year's tariff, trade, new policy decisions that are being taken, of course, in the United States of America, but not only, because they invite reciprocal measures. More specifically, we are also looking in the thematic part of the report not only at current trends in global macroeconomic context, but into the place of developing countries in this shifting landscape of the global economy. So there are two research questions that the report will be focusing on. One is the impact of the policy shocks of 2025 in the global context of the financialized economy. So, for example, there are trade shocks that are already on the surface. You will see from my colleagues the most recent statistics and data and some lessons we can draw already for global growth and major trade trends. But what is there beyond? Does it stay with trend, or does it reverberate further into currencies, into financial fragmentation, into productive fragmentation and fracture of the global economy? Or should this be an opportunity for a new version of multilateral linkages that could be more resilient and adaptive to the complex connections between trade and finance today? And more importantly, for the developing countries, we're also asking, how can current picture of financialization, that is the domination or the driving force of financial markets, financial decisions, financial motives, financial institutions over the so-called real economy, how can these trends of financialization explain the uneven integration of the global south into the global economy, and what lessons does it present today? The uneven integration is partly captured on the diagram that you see now on the right. It's a snapshot of the progress that Global South has made over the past few decades in integrating into the global economy. And you can see that there is a vast difference between overall presence of developing countries in global productive structure, in the Global South driving economic growth. My colleague Cameron can confirm that for 2025, there is Global South economies or developing economies have contributed around 70% of global GDP overall. But their presence or their footprint in the financial system remains very marginal and weak. It's not commensurate to their role in international trade, in global production, and even in FDI flows. So we are investigating that paradox, and we're drawing lessons as to what can be improved, or what sort of policy options can be put on the table for developing countries individually and collectively. But before that, I will now hand to Cam, who will be talking about the global macroeconomic context. And I promise to come back immediately after 12 o'clock.
Thank you so much, Anastasia, for your opening remarks. Before we go to Cam and Nicola, we could like to introduce them both before their presentations, and we'll also look at what we'll be covering today. To start with Nicola Meister, who's an economist who's on my immediate right. Nicholas is a senior economic affairs officer, also in the macroeconomic and development policies branch of the Division on Globalization and Development Strategies, where he is part of a team that writes the Trade and Development Report, which is, as Anastasia explained, the flagship publication of the UN Trade and Development. He's also involved with the work of the Framework Working Group of the G20, which discusses contemporary relevant macroeconomic issues. And before coming to UNCTAD in 2012, he worked at the United Nations Department on Economic and Social Affairs in New York. He has a PhD in economics from the University of Geneva and a master's degree from the Graduate Institute, also in Geneva. He has published several academic papers on a wide range of topics in peer-reviewed journals, including the Journal of International Economics and Journal of International Money and Finance, Research Policy, Energy, Economics, and Journal of International Trade and Economic Development. Welcome, Nicholas. And to my far right, we have Cameroon Danishvar, who's also an economist in UNCTAD, and he's an economic affairs officer, also in the macroeconomic and development policies branch at the Division of Globalization and Development Strategies. And he works in the team that also prepares the trade and development reports. And he monitors the analysis of global macroeconomic trends, analysis of the global commodity markets, and he also conducts research on fiscal policy issues. Before coming to UNCTAD, he worked as an economist at the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, and during this time During this time at ECLAC, he held the position of country economist for several countries in both South and Central America, as well as leading a series of projects on topics such as global value chains, financial inclusion, and rural development. Cameroon holds a master's degree in economics from McGill University in Canada and a postgraduate studies at Johns Hopkins University. Welcome, Cameron. So what we're going to be doing today, for the first session, we're going to basically, Cameron is going to take us through the forecast on the global economy. We're going to look at insights from the report that will be launched in 2 weeks. So you'll have sort of like all the insights ahead of the launch, which is a great opportunity. As well, you will be looking at, very importantly, at longer-term structural shifts and lowered growth expectations in the Global South. And we will explore these matters together, including external shocks, debt issues, and the huge issue that we really care about in UNCTAD, which is the entrenched inequalities. And then we're going to move to Nicola, who will take us through the Trade and Finance Nexus and what's happening next. And we will come back to Anastasia at the end of the short course when she comes back. So let's start with Cam. Over to you, Cameron.